Perhaps the janitor would like to solve this equation since he's so interested in my class. Professor Laurel Kensington's voice sliced through the lecture hall like a blade. Holden Caraway froze, mop handle gripping tight in his calloused hands, industrial cleaner sharp in his nostrils. 70 pairs of eyes turned toward him. She smiled, cold and precise. No, then perhaps you should stick to what you're qualified for, cleaning toilets. Laughter rippled through the room. Not loud, not cruel exactly, but enough. Enough to make his face burn. Enough to remind him where he stood in this world now. Holden kept his head down and pushed his cart toward the exit. The wheels squeaked against polished floors that reflected the fluorescent lights overhead, each sound announcing his retreat. Behind him, Professor Kensington resumed her lecture on differential topology, her voice smooth and confident as she erased the equation she'd been working on. The equation she'd gotten wrong. The equation Holden had stopped to study because he saw the error immediately, saw the elegant solution that would unlock it. But he said nothing. He never did. The hallway swallowed him in blessed silence. Holden leaned against the wall, eyes closed, willing his heart to slow. 3 years of this. 3 years of being invisible, of being the punchline, of biting his tongue until it bled. He pulled his phone from his pocket. 7:43 p.m. Hazel's bedtime was in 17 minutes, and he was still 40 minutes from home if the bus ran on time. He moved faster, pushing the cart toward the supply closet. The university stretched around him, all marble columns and mahogany paneling, oil paintings of distinguished faculty members watching from gilded frames. Whitmore University, one of the most prestigious institutions in the country. He'd walked these halls differently once before. Holden locked the cleaning supplies away and clocked out. The time card machine stamped 7:47 p.m. with a mechanical thunk. 43 hours this week. Next week, he'd pick up more shifts at the warehouse if they'd let him. Hazel's inhaler prescription was due for refill, and her school needed money for the field trip she desperately wanted to attend. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. Cold November air bit at his face as he walked, jacket too thin for the weather but warmer than nothing. Other people passed him on the sidewalk, students laughing, professors discussing research, couples holding hands. He was a ghost among them. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen, his neighbor who watched Hazel in the evenings. "She's asking for you, wants her good-night story." Holden typed back with frozen fingers, 10 minutes. Tell her I'm bringing her favorite. He stopped at the corner store, its fluorescent sign flickering against the dark sky. Inside, he counted exact change for a pack of Hazel's favorite cookies, the chocolate ones with cream filling, $4.37. He had $6.12 in his pocket. The remaining $1.75 would cover bus fare home. As he waited in line, a kid in a private school uniform stood ahead of him, maybe 9 years old, setting down a sandwich and juice. The cashier rang it up. 7:49. The kid's face fell. He counted bills and coins spread across the counter. "I only have $6.50. I thought I had enough." The cashier shrugged, then put something back. Holden watched the kid's ears turn red, watched him start to reach for the sandwich. Without thinking, he stepped forward and placed $2 bills on the counter. "I've got the rest." The kid turned, surprised. "Really? Really? Eat your dinner." Relief flooded the boy's face. He grabbed his food, mumbled thanks, and hurried out. The cashier took Holden's money for the cookies without comment. Holden left with 75 cents in his pocket and a 2-mile walk ahead of him because he couldn't afford the bus anymore. His feet ached by the time he reached Mrs. Chen's apartment. She opened the door before he could knock, Hazel already in her pajamas behind her. "Daddy," Hazel launched herself at him, small arms wrapping around his waist. 8 years old, all wild dark curls and gap-toothed smile. She had her mother's eyes, warm and bright and full of trust that terrified him. "Hey, pumpkin," he hugged her close, breathing in the scent of the lavender shampoo Mrs. Chen used. "Sorry I'm late. Mrs. Chen let me help make dumplings. I folded 6 all by myself." "6, you're practically a chef." He produced the cookies from his pocket like a magician revealing his trick. "But first, dessert." Hazel's eyes went wide. "My favorite." Mrs. Chen smiled at them both, lines crinkling around her eyes. She was 73, lived on Social Security, and refused payment for watching Hazel. "She's good company," she always said. "My apartment's too quiet alone." Holden suspected she knew he couldn't afford childcare, that this was her way of helping without making him feel Charity's sting. "Thank you," he told her. "Always thank you. Never enough thank yous for what she gave him. Go home, both of you, it's late." Their apartment was on the 4th floor, no elevator. Hazel chattered the whole climb up about her day at school, about the math problem she'd solved that made her teacher proud, about the girl who'd shared crayons during art. Holden listened, really listened, because these moments were what he lived for. Everything else, the humiliation, the exhaustion, the empty bank account, was just noise around the symphony of his daughter's voice. Inside, their apartment was small but clean. One bedroom that Hazel used, living room where Holden slept on the pull-out couch, tiny kitchen with appliances that threatened to break daily. But the walls had pictures Hazel had drawn, and the bookshelf overflowed with library books, and string lights hung around the windows casting warm light that made everything feel less broken. Hazel climbed into bed with her stuffed rabbit, the one her mother had given her. Holden sat on the edge of the mattress, the familiar ritual settling over them both. "Tell me about Mommy," Hazel said. She asked this most nights. Holden's throat tightened, but he smiled. "Your mom was brilliant. She was an artist, remember? She could look at anything, a tree, a building, a person's face, and see the beauty in it. She painted the world the way she wished it was, kinder, brighter. Do I look like her? You have her eyes, her smile, her laugh. Do you miss her? Every second of every day." "Yes, but she left me the best part of herself. She left me you." Hazel considered this, fingers tracing her rabbit's ears. "Daddy, why don't you teach any more? At school today, Mrs. Rodriguez said my math skills are exceptionally advanced. She asked if someone at home helps me. I said you do. She asked what you do for work." Holden's chest constricted. "What did you tell her? That you're a janitor?" She looked surprised. "I don't understand why." How to explain this to an 8-year-old? How to tell her that he'd once been Dr. Holden Caraway, that he'd been 3 months from his PhD in mathematics, that he'd been called once in a generation by the department chair. How to explain that it all vanished because of a lie he'd been too broken to fight. "Sometimes life changes our plans," he said carefully. "I used to study math, advanced math. I wanted to be a professor. But then Mommy got sick, and I needed to take care of her. And then I needed to take care of you. The math can wait, you can't. But you still love math." "I do. I see you," Hazel said, voice matter of fact. "At night when you think I'm asleep, you're at the table with papers, writing numbers and symbols. You smile when you figure something out. The same smile when I solve a hard problem. Perceptive child, too perceptive. Math is like breathing for me, pumpkin. I can't really stop." "Then why do you hide it?" "Because the world decided I don't deserve it anymore. Because showing what I can do only brings pain. Because I'm terrified someone will notice and take even this away from me." "I'm not hiding," he lied. "I'm just practicing, keeping my brain sharp." Hazel yawned, fighting sleep. "When I grow up, I'm going to be a mathematician like you." "Like us," he corrected. "Now sleep, school tomorrow." He kissed her forehead, tucked the blankets around her, and watched until her breathing deepened. Then he returned to the living room and pulled out his laptop, 7 years old, held together with tape, but functional. From under the couch, he retrieved a folder of papers, edges worn from handling. Holden spread them across the coffee table. Equations flowed across pages, proofs building on each other, a mathematical architecture 3 years in construction. He worked on it every night after Hazel slept, this thing that consumed him, this problem that had no name yet, but would, if he solved it, revolutionize theoretical mathematics. His pencil moved across paper, years of training guiding his hand. The apartment silent except for scratch of graphite and distant city sounds filtering through thin walls. This was his meditation, his prayer, his rebellion against a world that said he was only worth the floors he mopped. At 2:17 a.m. he finally slept. The alarm screamed at 5:30 a.m. Holden forced himself upright, body protesting. 4 hours of sleep. He'd survived on less. He made coffee, got Hazel up, packed her lunch with the careful calculation of someone stretching every dollar. Turkey sandwich, apple slices, carrot sticks, and exactly 3 of the cookies from last night. "Why do you only have coffee?" Hazel asked, watching him from the table. "Not hungry yet. I'll eat at work." Another lie. The truth was the food was for her, always for her. They walked to her school together, Hazel's hand in his, backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Other parents dropped kids off from cars, nice cars, new cars. Holden tried not to notice. "Love you, Daddy," Hazel said at the school entrance. "Love you more, learned something amazing today." "I always do." She ran inside, and Holden walked the 3 miles to Whitmore University. The morning shift at the warehouse didn't start until noon, giving him time to work his first job. He clocked in at 7:03 a.m., changed into his uniform and began his rounds. The routine was numbing. Empty trash cans, clean whiteboards, mop floors, repeat. Building to building, room to room, invisible labor that kept the university functioning while professors and students barely noticed his existence. By 10 a.m., he reached the mathematics building. The place that used to feel like home. He pushed his cart down familiar hallways, past offices that once welcomed him, classrooms where he'd once taught. Now he just cleaned them. Professor Kensington's office was on his route. He knocked, no answer. She was probably teaching. He unlocked the door with his master key and wheeled the cart inside. Her office was immaculate. Bookshelves lined with prestigious texts, diplomas covering one wall, mahogany desk polished to a mirror shine. On that desk sat stacks of papers, student work, research notes, grant applications. Holden emptied her trash and replaced the liner, trying not to look, trying not to care. But his eyes caught something, a paper on top of the stack, covered in familiar symbols. His breath stopped. He stepped closer, telling himself he shouldn't, knowing he would anyway. The equations were his, not similar, not coincidentally parallel. His exact work from 3 weeks ago, the notes he'd accidentally left in lecture hall 304 after spending his lunch break working through a particularly difficult proof. He'd gone back for them, but they'd been gone. And now they were here in Kensington's office, with her notes in the margins, her name on top. A chill ran down his spine. She'd taken them. She was claiming them as her own work. Holden's hands trembled as he lifted the papers, reading her annotations. She didn't understand them, that much was clear. She'd missed the elegant shortcuts, overcomplicated the simple parts. But she was preparing to publish them. Her preliminary abstract was paper clipped to the back. A novel approach to nonlinear differential systems by Professor Laurel Kensington, Ph.D. The door opened behind him. "What are you doing with those?" Holden spun. Professor Kensington stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression ice cold. She was 45, sharp-featured, always impeccably dressed. Today she wore a gray suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. He set the papers down carefully. "I saw my work." "Your work?" She laughed, the sound brittle. "You're a janitor, Mr. Carraway. You don't have work beyond a mop and bucket. These equations, I wrote them 3 weeks ago in lecture hall 304. They were my notes." Her expression didn't flicker. "That's an interesting delusion." "These are my research notes. If you found papers in a lecture hall, you should have turned them into lost and found, not convinced yourself you wrote them. Though I suppose stealing others' intellectual property isn't new for you, is it?" The words hit like a physical blow. She knew, of course she knew. She'd been the one to accuse him of plagiarism 3 years ago, the accusation that destroyed his academic career. "I didn't steal anything," Holden said quietly. "Not then, not now. Those notes are mine." "Prove it. I can solve them, right here, right now. I can show you the next 7 steps, explain the methodology, derive the proofs." Kensington walked to her desk, gathered the papers, and locked them in her drawer. "You won't touch these again. If you do, I'll have you fired. If you make any claims about your work, I'll ensure every university in the country knows you're still plagiarizing. You'll never mop a floor in academia again. Are we clear?" Holden's jaw clenched, muscle jumping in his cheek. Rage and helplessness warred inside him. She had all the power, she always had, and they both knew he couldn't fight her. Not without proof, not without credibility, not without the credentials she'd helped strip away. "Clear," he managed. "Good, now finish cleaning my office and get out." He worked in silence, every movement mechanical. She sat at her desk the entire time, watching him with an expression of satisfied superiority. When he finished, he left without a word. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, fighting to control his breathing. His heart hammered against his ribs. After everything she'd done to him, after destroying his career and stealing his future, she was still stealing from him, still crushing him under her heel, and he had no way to stop her. "Hey, Holden," he looked up. Marcus Chen, a graduate student in applied mathematics, jogged toward him. Marcus was 26, brilliant, and one of the few people in the building who treated Holden like a human being. They'd struck up an odd friendship over the past few months, conversations that started about basketball and somehow always drifted toward mathematics. "You okay?" Marcus asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine, just tired." Marcus studied him with obvious concern. "You sure? Because you look ready to either cry or punch something." "Definitely not crying." Holden managed a weak smile. "Maybe punching, but nothing I can afford to replace." "Rough morning, you could say that." They walked together toward the stairwell. Marcus carried a coffee from the expensive campus cafe, the kind Holden never bought. "Hey, did you hear about the competition? The university's mathematics department is hosting it. $500,000 prize." Holden stopped walking. "What competition?" "Some big problem in theoretical mathematics. They're inviting solutions from anyone, students, faculty, outside researchers. Open submission. Winner presents their proof at the end of the semester. The money comes from an anonymous donor who wants to encourage innovative mathematical thinking or whatever. It's a huge deal. $500,000. The number echoed in Holden's mind. That was Hazel's medical care covered. That was getting out of their crumbling apartment. That was security, safety, breathing room. "When's the deadline?" 6 weeks. "Why are you thinking of entering?" Marcus grinned, thinking it was a joke. Holden didn't answer. His mind was already racing, calculating, considering. Would they even accept a submission from him? The competition was open, Marcus said. Anyone could enter. Anyone except someone blacklisted from academia for plagiarism. But what if he entered under a pseudonym? What if he submitted anonymously? "Just curious," Holden said. "Sounds interesting." "Kensington's entering, obviously. She's been talking about it non-stop. Pretty sure she thinks it's already hers to win." Marcus rolled his eyes. "Between you and me, her recent papers aren't as groundbreaking as she claims. Something about them feels, I don't know, incomplete, like she doesn't fully understand her own work." "Because it's not her work, it's mine." They reached the stairwell. Marcus headed up toward his office. Holden headed down toward the janitor's station. But before they parted, Marcus turned back. "Hey, weird question. That day last month when you were cleaning the graduate student lounge, I saw the whiteboard after you left. Someone had corrected my proof, added this brilliant shortcut I'd completely missed. That wasn't you, was it?" Holden's pulse quickened. He'd thought no one noticed. He'd seen Marcus struggling with a problem, saw the elegant solution immediately, and couldn't resist adding it before he erased the board. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Right," Marcus smiled knowingly. "Okay, well, whoever it was, they saved me 2 weeks of work. Tell them thanks if you see them." Holden nodded and descended the stairs. His shift ended at noon. He clocked out, changed clothes in the bathroom, and walked to his second job at Peterson's warehouse on the industrial side of town. 4 hours loading trucks, unloading pallets, moving boxes. His back screamed, his shoulders burned, but the pain was distant. His mind was elsewhere, turning over the possibility Marcus had offered. A competition, $500,000, open submission. Could he really enter? Could he solve the problem they'd posed? He wouldn't know until he saw it. That night after Hazel was asleep, Holden opened his laptop and navigated to Whitmore University's mathematics department website. The competition announcement was featured prominently, the Millennium Prize Mathematics Challenge. His heart nearly stopped. The problem was a variation on the Navier-Stokes existence and smoothness problem, one of the 7 most important unsolved questions in mathematics. Modified, constrained to specific conditions, but still incredibly difficult. Most mathematicians would need years to approach it. Teams of researchers worked on it. Holden read the problem 3 times, his mind automatically beginning to organize approaches. He pulled out his notebooks, started sketching preliminary ideas. By 1 a.m., he had a framework. By 3 a.m., he'd identified the critical breakthrough needed. By 4 a.m., he knew he could solve it. The next week passed in a blur. Holden moved through his days on autopilot: work, Hazel, work, Hazel, work. But his nights belonged to the problem. He filled pages with equations, testing approaches, discarding dead ends, building toward the solution he could feel taking shape. If this story's pulling you in already, make sure you're subscribed. Because what happens next, when Holden decides to risk everything on this competition, changes his entire life. Now back to that night that made his decision impossible to reverse. It was a Tuesday when Hazel started coughing. Small at first, just a tickle. By Wednesday, she couldn't catch her breath between coughs. Thursday morning, Holden took her to the free clinic. The doctor, overworked, exhausted, kind, listened to her lungs and frowned. Her asthma's getting worse. She needs a stronger inhaler, possibly a nebulizer for home. I'm writing prescriptions, but I have to tell you, with your insurance, the copay will be around $400. $400. Holden had $173 in checking, $52 in savings. Is there a generic, something cheaper? This is the cheap option, I'm sorry. You could try applying for assistance programs, but they take weeks to process. Weeks. Hazel needed medication now. She needed to breathe now. Holden took the prescriptions with shaking hands. At the pharmacy, he asked them to fill only the inhaler, the one thing she absolutely needed to function, $240. He paid with a credit card already close to maxed out. The nebulizer would have to wait. Everything would have to wait. That night, Holden watched Hazel sleep, listened to the rasp in her breathing even with the new medication. She was so small in her bed, so fragile. He'd promised to protect her, to give her the life she deserved. He was failing. The competition deadline was 4 weeks away. The prize was $500,000. Holden made his decision. He opened his laptop and navigated to the competition submission page. It asked for name, credentials, institutional affiliation. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He couldn't use his full name. Someone might recognize it, might remember the plagiarism scandal. But he needed some version of his name, something that felt honest even if it was obscured. He typed, H. Carraway, no institution, no credentials, just the proof, and what a proof it was. Holden worked with intensity that burned through him, 4 hours of sleep a night maximum, coffee and determination keeping him upright. The mathematics flowed like music, each line building on the last, a symphony of logic and intuition. This was what he was born to do. This was who he was beneath the janitor's uniform. Marcus noticed. You look terrible, man. You getting enough sleep? Just busy. With what? Holden just smiled. Professor Kensington noticed too, but differently. She seemed to sense something had shifted in him, some quality of defeat that no longer clung to his shoulders. It made her suspicious. She watched him more carefully now when he cleaned her office, checked that he didn't linger near her papers. One afternoon, she stopped him in the hallway. You seem distracted lately, Mr. Carraway. I hope you're not neglecting your duties. Just tired, Professor, working 2 jobs. Yes, well, some of us work with our minds, others with their hands. We all have our place. She smiled thinly. I hope you remember yours. He said nothing. What was there to say? In 4 weeks, either his proof would speak for him or it wouldn't. Either he would win and finally have the resources to give Hazel a safe life, or he would lose and remain exactly where he was. The deadline was October 31st, submissions due by midnight. October 30th, Holden finished the final section of his proof. He read through it, checking every step, every logical leap, every derivation. It was correct. More than correct, it was elegant. It was his best work, the culmination of everything he knew, everything he was. At 11:47 p.m. on Halloween, while children's laughter echoed from the street below and Hazel slept in her bedroom with candy corn dreams, Holden uploaded his proof to the competition portal. He filled out the submission form with trembling hands. Name, H. Carraway affiliation, independent researcher email, Anonymous email he'd created, phone, his actual number because they'd need to contact him. He attached his proof, 47 pages of the most beautiful mathematics he'd ever produced. His finger hovered over the submit button. This was it. Point of no return. If anyone connected H. Carraway to Holden Carraway, if Kensington discovered he'd entered, if the university recognized him, he clicked submit. The confirmation screen appeared. Your submission has been received. All entries will be reviewed by our panel of expert mathematicians. Finalists will be notified by November 15th. Thank you for participating in the Millennium Prize Mathematics Challenge. Holden closed his laptop. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. What had he done? What had he risked? Everything. He'd risked everything. The next 2 weeks were agony. Holden went through his routines like a ghost, barely present. He mopped floors, loaded trucks, made Hazel's lunch, read her bedtime stories, but part of him was somewhere else, waiting for an email that might never come. The university buzzed with speculation about the competition. Marcus told him there were over 200 submissions from around the world. The mathematics department had assembled a verification committee, professors, visiting scholars, independent experts. They were reviewing every proof, testing every claim. Professor Kensington became insufferable. She talked loudly in hallways about her submission, how the problem was challenging but manageable for someone of my caliber, how the prize money would fund her research for years. Other faculty members smiled and nodded, though Holden caught skeptical glances between them when she wasn't looking. November 15th arrived. Holden checked his email every 5 minutes. Nothing. Maybe his proof had been rejected immediately, not even worth review. Maybe they'd seen his name and deleted it without reading. Maybe his phone buzzed at 3:47 p.m. while he was mopping the mathematics building 3rd floor. An email from competition, Whitmore, Edu. Subject, Millennium Prize Mathematics Challenge finalist notification. Holden's vision narrowed. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped the phone. He opened the email. Dear H. Carraway, congratulations. Your submission to the Millennium Prize Mathematics Challenge has been selected as one of 5 finalists. Our verification committee has reviewed your proof and found it to be exceptionally rigorous and innovative. We would like to invite you to present your work to the full committee and university mathematics faculty on December 15th at 2:00 p.m. in the Hamilton Lecture Hall. This presentation is mandatory for final consideration. Please confirm your attendance by November 20th. The winner will be announced immediately following all presentations. We look forward to meeting you and hearing about your groundbreaking work. Sincerely, Dr. Robert Whitfield, Dean of Mathematics, Whitmore University. Holden read it 3 times, then 4. His heart slammed against his ribs like it was trying to escape. He'd made it. He was a finalist. His proof, his work, had been recognized as exceptional by experts who didn't know his name, didn't know his history, judged it purely on its mathematical merit. He wanted to scream. He wanted to cry. He wanted to find Marcus and tell him everything, wanted to scoop up Hazel and spin her around, wanted to call his wife's name to the sky and tell her he'd done it. He'd finally done something worthy of the future they dreamed about together. But reality crashed down immediately. Presentation, mandatory, December 15th, in front of the full mathematics faculty, including Professor Kensington. They'd see him, they'd know, and when they knew, his phone buzzed again. Another email, this one from the university's general announcement list. Subject, Millennium Prize Challenge finalists announced. Holden opened it with mounting dread. The email listed 5 finalists, 1 Dr. Sarah Chen, MIT 2, Professor Laurel Kensington, Whitmore University 3, Dr. James Patterson, Oxford University 4, H. Carraway, Independent Researcher 5, Dr. Maria Rodriguez, Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico 4 PhD holders, and him. The independent researcher with no credentials listed, no institution backing him. The final paragraph read, all 5 finalists have produced exceptional work. The presentation on December 15th will be open to the university community and live-streamed to the global mathematics community. This is a historic moment for Whitmore University and mathematical research. Historic, global live stream. Open to the university. Holden leaned against the wall, the mop forgotten. His secret was about to explode in the most public way possible. He had 3 weeks to decide, withdraw now and stay safe, or present and risk everything. But it wasn't really a choice. It never had been. That night, Holden checked his bank account, $17.39. The credit card bill was due in 5 days. Hazel needed new shoes, her current ones had holes. The nebulizer they couldn't afford sat on his browser's shopping cart, a constant reminder of everything he couldn't give her. $500,000 would fix all of it. But more than that, and this was the truth that burned in his chest, he needed to present that proof. Not for the money, though God knows he needed it, but because he needed the world to see what he could do. Needed to prove to himself that he was still the mathematician they'd tried to erase. Needed to show Hazel that her father was more than a janitor. He would present. Whatever happened after, he would present. 3 days later, another email arrived from Dean Whitfield's office. H. Carraway must submit current contact information and be available for a verification meeting 48 hours prior to presentation. Please respond within 48 hours to confirm attendance. Holden sat in front of his laptop for an hour before typing his response. He gave his real phone number, his real address. He confirmed attendance. He signed it simply, H. Carraway. The response came within minutes. Thank you. We look forward to meeting you. Your proof is remarkable, truly remarkable. Professor Whitfield's words echoed in his head. Remarkable. The dean had called his work remarkable, not knowing he was praising the janitor who mopped his office floors every Tuesday and Thursday. Campus exploded with speculation. Who was this H. Carraway? The mysterious independent researcher with no credentials, no institution, no history. Online forums buzzed. Mathematics blogs ran articles. Some called him a genius, others a fraud. Conspiracy theories multiplied. Marcus cornered Holden in the break room. Dude, this H. Carraway guy is blowing everyone's minds. No one can figure out who he is. The committee won't say anything except that his proof is potentially revolutionary. Kensington is losing her mind trying to figure out if he's a threat to her winning. What does she think? Holden asked, keeping his voice neutral. She thinks it's probably a famous mathematician submitting anonymously to avoid bias, like maybe someone from Stanford or Cambridge not wanting their reputation to influence judging. She's trying to get the committee to reveal his identity before the presentation. Marcus lowered his voice. Between you and me, I heard one of the committee members say H. Carraway's proof is the most elegant solution they've seen. Better than all the others, including Kensington's. Better than Kensington's. Holden felt something dangerous bloom in his chest. Hope, satisfaction, justice. Marcus continued, oblivious. The presentation is going to be insane. I heard they're expecting thousands of viewers on the live stream. This is the biggest thing to happen in mathematics this year. Man, I wish I was smart enough to have entered. You're plenty smart, Holden said quietly. Not H. Carraway smart. That guy's on another level. If only Marcus knew he was having this conversation with H. Carraway, that the genius he admired was the janitor holding a mop. The next 2 weeks passed in surreal slowness. Holden prepared obsessively for his presentation. He practiced explaining his proof in clear language, anticipating questions, preparing responses. He bought a suit from Goodwill, $23, gray, slightly too big, but presentable when tailored with safety pins and hope. He got a haircut at a barber school where students practiced for free. Hazel noticed everything. Why are you getting dressed up, Daddy? Do you have an interview? Sort of, something important. Will it help us? God, he hoped so. Maybe pumpkin, we'll see. December 13th, 2 days before the presentation, Holden received an email requesting a preliminary meeting with Dean Whitfield, just to go over presentation logistics and ensure your materials are ready for the technical setup. Holden arranged for Mrs. Chen to watch Hazel that evening and took the bus to campus. His stomach churned the entire ride. He walked through the university gates feeling like an imposter, like someone would stop him and demand to know why a janitor was here after hours. Dean Whitfield's office was on the 4th floor of the administration building. Holden had cleaned it dozens of times, but never entered as anything other than invisible labor. Now he stood outside the heavy oak door, hand raised to knock, heart threatening to break through his chest. He knocked. "Come in." Holden opened the door. Dean Robert Whitfield sat behind his massive desk, papers spread before him, reading glasses perched on his nose. He was 62, distinguished, with silver hair and the bearing of someone who'd spent decades in positions of authority. He looked up. His eyes widened. Recognition flickered across his face, followed by confusion, then shock. "Mr. Carraway?" "Dean Whitfield." The dean stood slowly, staring. "You're H. Carraway? You're the one who submitted the proof?" "Yes." Silence stretched between them. Dean Whitfield's expression cycled through emotions Holden couldn't quite read. Surprise, disbelief, something that might have been guilt. "I don't. How did you?" The dean sat back down heavily. "Your proof, I read it myself. It's brilliant. I had no idea." "Why would you?" Holden stayed near the door, ready to run if necessary. "I'm just the janitor." The words hung in the air, sharp and bitter. Dean Whitfield flinched. "Mr. Carraway, I think we need to talk." "Please sit down." "I'd rather stand." "Please." The dean's voice carried weight that wasn't quite order but close. "Sit. This conversation is long overdue." Holden sat on the edge of the leather chair across from the desk, his hands clenched in his lap. Dean Whitfield removed his glasses, rubbed his eyes. "I owe you an apology, several apologies. I've owed them for 3 years." Holden said nothing. "The plagiarism accusation against you, I knew it was questionable. I knew Professor Kensington's evidence was circumstantial at best. But he paused, struggling with words. "Her family are major donors to this university, millions of dollars in their name on buildings, scholarships, research grants. When she demanded action, when she threatened to have her family withdraw support if we didn't take her seriously, I took the cowardly path. I prioritized money over justice, over you." "I know," Holden said flatly. "You know. I've always known." "I'm not stupid, Dean Whitfield. I understood the politics. I understood why you chose her over me. I just didn't have the strength to fight it when my wife was dying." The dean's face crumpled. "I'm so sorry. For what it's worth, which I know is very little, I've regretted that decision every day since. You are one of the most talented mathematicians I've ever taught. Destroying your career was the worst thing I've ever done." "Then why didn't you fix it?" Holden's voice rose despite himself. "Why didn't you clear my name when you knew the truth?" "Because I'm a coward. Because admitting I was wrong would have cost me my position, my reputation. Because I prioritized myself over you again and again." Dean Whitfield met his eyes directly. "I have no defense. I failed you. I failed this institution. And I'm sorry." Apologies didn't pay medical bills. Apologies didn't give back 3 years of his life. Apologies didn't bring back the time he'd lost with his dying wife. But they were something. "What happens now?" Holden asked. "Now that you know who I am?" "Now," the dean leaned forward, "now I help you present your proof. Now I make sure everyone knows how brilliant you are. Now I start making amends." He paused. "Unless you want to withdraw, I would understand if you don't trust this institution anymore." "I can't withdraw. I need that prize money. My daughter," his voice cracked. "She needs medical care I can't afford." Understanding dawned on the dean's face. "I see. Then we proceed. But Mr. Carraway, you should know Professor Kensington is also a finalist. When she realizes you're H. Carraway, when she sees you presenting, I know she'll try to destroy me again. She'll try. I won't let her succeed this time. You have my word. Your word didn't help me 3 years ago. No, it didn't." Dean Whitfield stood and extended his hand. "But it will now, I promise you." Holden stared at the offered hand. Shaking it felt like betrayal of his younger self, of his wife's memory, of every night he'd spent broken and alone. But not shaking it felt like giving up the only ally he might have. He shook the dean's hand. "Thank you for coming," Dean Whitfield said. "The presentation is at 2 p.m. on Sunday. Be here an hour early for technical setup. And Mr. Carraway, your proof is the best one submitted. I believe you're going to win." Holden left the office in a daze. The campus was dark now, streetlights casting pools of yellow on empty sidewalks. In 2 days, he would stand in front of hundreds of people, thousands online, and present his work. Professor Kensington would be there. She would recognize him. She would attack. But he had the truth on his side now. He had his proof, elegant and irrefutable. He had Dean Whitfield's support, however late it came, and he had nothing left to lose. Holden pulled out his phone and opened his messages. He typed a text to Marcus. "Want to grab coffee tomorrow? There's something I need to tell you." Then he walked to the bus stop, rode home, climbed 4 flights of stairs, and entered his apartment where Hazel slept peacefully and Mrs. Chen waited with a smile. "How was your meeting?" Mrs. Chen asked. "Complicated, but maybe good." That night, after Mrs. Chen left, Holden stood at his window looking out at the city. Lights spread before him like a constellation fallen to earth. Somewhere out there, Professor Kensington slept easy, confident in her superiority. Somewhere, Dean Whitfield wrestled with 3-year-old guilt. Somewhere, Marcus wondered why his janitor friend wanted to talk. And here, in this small apartment with peeling paint and thin walls, Holden Caraway stood on the edge of everything changing. His phone buzzed. An email from competition, Whitmore, Edu. Subject, final reminder presentation, December 15th. He opened it. "Dear H. Caraway, this is your final reminder that your presentation is scheduled for Sunday, December 15th at 2:00 p.m. in Hamilton Lecture Hall. Please arrive by 1:00 p.m. for technical setup. Note: all 5 finalists will present in alphabetical order. You will present second, immediately following Dr. Sarah Chen and preceding Professor Laurel Kensington. The presentation will be live-streamed globally. Estimated audience, 15,000 plus viewers. We are excited to finally meet the brilliant mind behind your revolutionary proof. Best regards, Competition Committee." Holden read the email 3 times. Second presenter. Immediately before Kensington, she would watch his entire presentation, would see him exposed before she had to present herself. Perfect. Terrifying. Perfect. He closed his laptop and went to check on Hazel one last time before trying to sleep. She lay curled around her stuffed rabbit, breathing easier now with her medication, completely unaware that in 2 days her father would either save their future or lose everything trying. Holden kissed her forehead. "I'm going to make you proud," he whispered. "I promise." Sunday morning arrived cold and bright. Holden woke at 6 a.m., unable to sleep longer. He made coffee, reviewed his notes one final time, paced the apartment until Hazel woke. "Big day?" she asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Very big day. Are you scared, terrified? But you're doing it anyway?" "Yes." Hazel hugged him tight. "That's what brave means. You told me that." Out of the mouths of 8-year-olds. "Yeah, pumpkin, that's what brave means." Mrs. Chen came over at noon to stay with Hazel. Holden put on his goodwill suit, checked his appearance in the bathroom mirror. He looked tired, older than 35, but presentable. He looked like someone who belonged at an academic presentation. He hoped. "Wish me luck," he told Hazel at the door. "You don't need luck. You're the smartest person I know. I love you more. Bring me back a good story. The best story or the worst. No in between today." Holden arrived at Whitmore University at 12:45 p.m. The Hamilton Lecture Hall was the largest on campus, seating 500 with standing room for another 100. Today it was packed. Faculty members filled the front rows, students crowded the back, cameras set up for the live stream, reporters scattered throughout. He stood at the back entrance, watching the crowd, heart hammering against his ribs. This was real. This was happening. In just over an hour, everyone would know who H. Caraway was. "Mr. Caraway." Dean Whitfield appeared beside him. "Come with me, we'll get you set up." They went backstage. The other finalists were there: Dr. Chen from MIT, a nervous young woman reviewing notes; Dr. Patterson from Oxford, calm and distinguished; Dr. Rodriguez from Mexico, friendly and excited; and Professor Kensington, immaculate in a navy suit, projecting absolute confidence. She didn't recognize Holden at first. He was out of context, in a suit instead of janitor uniform. But then her eyes found him and widened. Recognition, shock, fury. She crossed the room in 3 strides. "What are you doing here?" "Presenting my proof." "Your proof?" She laughed, but it sounded wrong. "You're H. Carraway, that's impossible. You can't possibly." I solved it. My proof was selected as a finalist." The other presenters watched with undisguised curiosity. Dean Whitfield stepped between them. "Professor Kensington, I suggest you prepare for your own presentation." "This is absurd. Dean, this man is a janitor. He was expelled from this university for plagiarism. He has no credentials, no right to be here." "He has every right," Dean Whitfield said firmly. "His submission met all competition requirements. His proof was reviewed blindly and deemed exceptional by the committee. His presence here is entirely legitimate." Kensington's face flushed red. "When I expose him as a fraud, then you'll do it through proper channels during the Q&A portion like everyone else." The dean's voice carried steel. "Now please prepare for your presentation." Kensington stared at Holden with pure hatred. "You won't get away with this. Everyone will know what you are." "They'll know exactly what I am," Holden said quietly. "A mathematician." She stalked away. Dr. Chen approached Holden with an uncertain smile. "Sorry, I couldn't help overhearing. You're really a janitor." "I am, but your proof is." "I read it. It's brilliant." "Thank you. This is going to be the most interesting presentation ever." At 1:55 p.m., Dean Whitfield stepped onto the stage. The crowd fell silent. Cameras turned on, red lights glowing. The live stream went live. "Welcome," the dean began, "to the Millennium Prize Mathematics Challenge final presentations. Today, 5 exceptional mathematicians will present their solutions to one of the most challenging problems in theoretical mathematics. The winner will receive $500,000 and international recognition for their contribution to mathematical knowledge." He introduced each finalist. When he reached H. Carraway, independent researcher, a murmur ran through the crowd. Everyone wanted to see the mysterious genius without credentials. Dr. Chen presented first. Her proof was solid, methodical, correct, but not particularly innovative. She fielded questions competently and sat down to polite applause. Then Dean Whitfield called, "Our second presenter, H. Carraway." Holden stood. His legs felt distant, not entirely his own. He walked onto the stage. 500 faces stared at him. 15,000 more watched online. He stepped to the podium, took a breath, opened his laptop. The screen behind him lit up with his first slide, a novel solution to modified Navier-Stokes existence and smoothness. And then Professor Kensington's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "This man is a convicted plagiarist." The room erupted. Cameras swiveled. Holden's vision blurred. Every face turned toward Kensington, then back to him. Dean Whitfield stood from his seat in the front row. His voice rang out clear and strong. "Then let me speak to that charge, right now." Dean Whitfield's voice cut through the chaos like a conductor silencing an orchestra. "Then let me speak to that charge, right now." The lecture hall fell silent. Camera operators adjusted their angles, capturing the dean as he walked to the front of the room. His expression was grave, resolute. Holden stood frozen at the podium, every muscle locked, waiting for the blow that would end everything. "3 years ago," Dean Whitfield began, his voice carrying to every corner of the packed hall, "this university expelled Holden Carraway from our doctoral program on charges of academic plagiarism. Professor Kensington brought forward evidence that Mr. Carraway had stolen research from another student. I reviewed that evidence, and I made the decision to expel him." Holden's stomach dropped. This was it. The dean was going to confirm every terrible thing Kensington had said. "That decision," Whitfield continued, "was the worst mistake of my career, because the plagiarism charge was false." The room exploded. Voices overlapped, questions shouted, gasps of shock rippling through the crowd. Professor Kensington shot to her feet, face pale. "What are you?" "Sit down, Professor Kensington." The dean's tone left no room for argument. She sat, jaw clenched, eyes blazing. Whitfield turned to address the full audience. "I have spent 3 years living with the knowledge that I destroyed an innocent man's career because I prioritized donor relationships over truth." Professor Kensington's family contributes millions to this university. When she demanded action, I gave it to her without proper investigation. I chose money over justice. I chose cowardice over integrity. Holden couldn't breathe. The air felt too thick, the room too bright. This wasn't happening. The dean wasn't actually confessing publicly, wasn't actually. Over the past week, I have reviewed the original case files thoroughly. The evidence against Mr. Carraway was circumstantial at best, fabricated at worst. He was accused of stealing research that, upon examination, bears all the hallmarks of his mathematical style, not the student he allegedly stole from. I believe then, and I know now, that Holden Carraway was innocent, and I am formally, publicly stating that his expulsion was unjust. His doctoral candidacy should never have been revoked. His name should never have been tarnished. The dean turned to face Holden directly. Mr. Carraway, I cannot give you back the 3 years you lost. I cannot undo the pain my cowardice caused you and your family, but I can offer you this: full reinstatement of your doctoral status, immediate conferral of your PhD based on your previously completed work, a formal apology from this institution, and my personal testimony to anyone who questions your integrity. You were, and are, one of the most brilliant mathematicians I have ever taught. I am deeply, profoundly sorry. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. Every eye shifted from the dean to Holden. Cameras zoomed in, capturing his face, his shock, the tears he couldn't quite stop from gathering in his eyes. Thank you, Holden managed, voice rough. I thank you, Whitfield nodded once, then addressed Kensington. As for you, Professor, we will discuss your role in this matter after the presentations conclude. For now, I ask that you allow Mr. Carraway to present his proof without further interruption. He has earned this moment. Kensington looked like she wanted to argue, to scream, to tear the room apart. But hundreds of witnesses surrounded her, thousands watched online. She could do nothing but sit rigidly, fury radiating from every line of her body. Dean Whitfield returned to his seat. The room remained eerily quiet, everyone processing what they'd just witnessed. Holden stood at the podium, his prepared remarks scattered somewhere in his mind, unable to form coherent thoughts. Then from the back of the room, someone started clapping, slow, steady applause. Holden recognized Marcus, standing, hands coming together in deliberate rhythm. Another student joined him, then another. Within seconds, the entire lecture hall erupted in applause that built and built until it became a standing ovation. Holden gripped the podium, overwhelmed. These people, these strangers and colleagues and students were applauding him, not out of pity but recognition, acknowledgement, respect. The applause eventually faded. People sat. Holden took a shaking breath and looked at his laptop screen. His proof waited there, the culmination of 3 years of secret work, of nights spent hunched over equations while his daughter slept, of refusing to let them erase who he was. Thank you, he said into the microphone. His voice steadied as mathematics took over, as he fell into the familiar rhythm of logic and proof. Today I'm going to show you how to solve the modified Navier-Stokes problem through an approach that combines topological analysis with novel boundary condition constraints. For the next 40 minutes, Holden presented. The mathematics flowed from him like breathing, each step building naturally on the last. He explained complex concepts in accessible language, anticipated objections, and addressed them preemptively, showed the elegant shortcuts that made his proof sing. He was aware of the audience, leaning forward, scribbling notes, nodding in understanding, but mostly he was aware of the mathematics itself, the pure beauty of it. This was who he was, not the janitor they saw mopping floors, not the defeated man accepting humiliation, but this, a mathematician explaining the architecture of truth. When he reached his final slide, showing the completed proof's conclusion, the room sat in stunned silence. Then Dr. Patterson from Oxford stood and began applauding. Dr. Chen and Dr. Rodriguez joined him. Within moments, another standing ovation erupted, this one louder, more energetic. Faculty members who'd ignored Holden for 3 years now stood clapping, recognition dawning that they'd overlooked a genius in their midst. Professor Kensington remained seated, arms crossed, expression murderous. Questions? Holden asked as the applause died. Hands shot up throughout the room. He fielded them smoothly, explaining methodology, defending choices, expanding on implications. Every answer revealed the depth of his understanding, the years of expertise that couldn't be faked. Dr. Patterson asked, "How long did this proof take you?" 3 years of active work, but in some ways it's built on everything I've studied since I was 16. And you developed this while working as… Dr. Chen paused delicately. While working as a janitor, yes, and as a warehouse loader. While raising my daughter alone. Holden met her eyes directly. Mathematics doesn't care about your job title, it only cares whether your logic is sound. More applause rippled through the crowd. Finally, inevitably, Professor Kensington stood. "I have a question." The room tensed. Holden nodded. "Go ahead. Your proof bears remarkable similarity to research notes I've been developing, notes that went missing from my office several weeks ago. How do you explain that?" A chill washed over him. She was trying the same tactic again, accusing him of theft in front of everyone. But this time, he had witnesses. This time, he had proof. "You mean the notes you took from Lecture Hall 304 on October 7th? Holden kept his voice level calm. "The notes I accidentally left there while working through preliminary calculations during my lunch break. The notes that contained my handwriting, my signature mathematical notation style, my approach to the problem." Kensington's eyes narrowed. "You have no proof those were your notes." "Actually, I do." Holden pulled out his phone, navigated to his cloud storage, and pulled up a file. "I photograph all my work before I move to the next stage. Here are images of those exact notes, time-stamped October 7th at 12:47 p.m., hours before your office was cleaned that day. I can provide metadata if needed." He displayed the images on the main screen. His handwriting, his equations, his date stamp. Irrefutable. Kensington's face flushed red. "That proves nothing. You could have photographed my notes." "Your notes?" Marcus stood from his seat, voice carrying. "Professor, I was in your office last week preparing for my thesis defense. You asked me to review some calculations you were working on. I noticed they were different from your usual style, more elegant, more intuitive. When I suggested an approach, you couldn't explain why it wouldn't work, because you didn't understand the mathematics. But I bet Mr. Carraway could explain it." Holden caught Marcus's eye, saw the understanding there. Marcus had figured it out, had probably suspected for weeks. "The shortcut you suggested wouldn't work, because the boundary conditions require continuity across the transformation. You can't skip the intermediate step without losing uniqueness of the solution." Marcus nodded. "Exactly what I thought. But Professor Kensington couldn't articulate that, because they weren't her notes." The room buzzed with whispered conversations. Faculty members exchanged significant looks. Kensington stood rigid, trapped. Dean Whitfield rose. "Professor Kensington, I think this discussion should continue in private. Please sit down." She sat, but her expression promised violence. The presentations continued. Professor Kensington presented third, her proof technically correct but uninspired, lacking the elegance of Holden's approach. She rushed through it, clearly rattled, and fielded questions poorly. Dr. Patterson and Dr. Rodriguez followed with solid but ultimately conventional solutions. When all 5 presentations concluded, Dean Whitfield announced, "The committee will deliberate for 30 minutes. Please remain here for the announcement." The lecture hall erupted into conversation the moment he left. Students crowded toward Holden, asking questions, requesting autographs, taking selfies with him. Faculty members who'd barely acknowledged his existence for 3 years now wanted to shake his hand, discuss his methodology, offer collaboration. Marcus pushed through the crowd. Dude, you're H. Carraway. This whole time I've been talking to you about this competition, and you're the freaking mystery genius everyone's been obsessing over." Holden couldn't help but smile. "Surprise. This is insane. Your proof is incredible. You're going to win." "We'll see." "No, seriously, I've read all 5 proofs. Yours is in a completely different league." Marcus lowered his voice. "But Kensington is going to come after you hard. She's not going to let this go." "I know, but I'm ready this time." Dr. Chen appeared at Holden's elbow. "I just wanted to say, your proof is beautiful, truly. I'm almost glad I'm going to lose to something that elegant. Thank you. Your approach was brilliant too. The way you handled the singularity problem was inspired. They talked mathematics while the committee deliberated, other finalists joining the conversation. Even Dr. Patterson, despite his Oxford prestige, treated Holden as an equal, asking genuine questions about his techniques. For the first time in 3 years, Holden felt like he belonged in academic spaces again, like he was seen. Professor Kensington stood alone near the side exit, isolated, watching them with an expression that made Holden's skin prickle. She reminded him of a cornered animal, dangerous precisely because she had nothing left to lose. After 35 minutes, Dean Whitfield returned with the 4 other committee members. The room fell silent instantly. Holden's heart hammered as he returned to his seat. This was it. Either his proof had won or it hadn't. Either his family's future was secure or he was back to mopping floors and maxed-out credit cards. Dean Whitfield stepped to the podium. The committee has reached a decision. Before I announce the winner, I want to acknowledge that all 5 finalists presented exceptional work. This was not an easy choice. However, one proof stood above the others in terms of mathematical elegance, innovative approach, and rigorous execution. Holden couldn't breathe. His fingernails dug into his palms. The winner of the Millennium Prize Mathematics Challenge and recipient of the $500,000 prize is. The door at the back of the lecture hall slammed open. A security guard rushed in, spoke urgently to another guard stationed by the wall. That guard hurried toward the stage, whispered something to Dean Whitfield. The dean's expression shifted from anticipation to confusion to alarm. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need to pause for a moment. He consulted with the guard again. There's been a development that the committee needs to address immediately. Please remain seated. We'll resume shortly." Dean, committee members, and both security guards exited through the side door. The room erupted in speculation. What development? What was happening? Marcus turned to Holden. "That's weird, right? That's really weird. Very weird." Professor Kensington's expression had shifted to something Holden couldn't quite read. Satisfaction, anticipation. She pulled out her phone, typed something rapidly, then smiled, small, cold, triumphant. A sick feeling grew in Holden's stomach. 10 minutes passed, 15. The crowd grew restless. Finally, Dean Whitfield returned alone. His face was grave. "I apologize for the delay. A serious allegation has been brought to the committee's attention regarding one of our finalists. We need time to investigate before announcing a winner. The announcement will be postponed until tomorrow at 2 p.m. Uproar, voices shouting questions. What allegation? Which finalist? Is this about the plagiarism? Dean Whitfield raised his hands. I cannot provide details while the matter is under investigation. All finalists are asked to remain available for interviews with the committee. Thank you for your patience. He left the stage quickly, avoiding eye contact. The room descended into chaos. Holden sat frozen, that sick feeling solidifying into certainty. This was Kensington. She'd done something, called someone, sent something, made some move to discredit him at the last possible moment. Marcus touched his arm. Hey, you okay? She did something, Kensington. That smile right before the guard came in. You don't know that. I know that. Holden stood. I need to find out what's happening. He pushed through the crowd toward the side exit, but a security guard blocked his path. Sorry, sir. Committee members only right now. I'm one of the finalists. If there's an allegation about me, I have a right to know. Sir, I can't let anyone back there. Please return to your seat or leave the building. Holden wanted to argue, to demand answers, but causing a scene would only make things worse. He turned and nearly collided with Professor Kensington. Careful, Mr. Carroway. Her voice dripped with false sweetness. You wouldn't want to make another mistake. What did you do? I have no idea what you mean. I simply brought certain facts to the committee's attention, facts they deserve to know before making their final decision. What facts? She leaned closer, voice dropping so only he could hear. Did you really think I'd let you humiliate me in front of the entire mathematical community? That I'd just accept defeat from a janitor? You should have stayed in your place, Holden. Now you're going to lose everything, again. She walked away before he could respond. Holden stood there, hands shaking, vision narrowing. What had she told them? What lie had she fabricated this time? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mr. Carraway, this is Dean Whitfield. I need to speak with you privately as soon as possible. Please come to my office immediately." Holden's chest tightened. He texted back, "On my way." The walk to the administration building felt miles long. His mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Maybe she'd claimed he stole the proof from someone else. Maybe she'd fabricated evidence of cheating. Maybe she'd found some technicality to disqualify him. Dean Whitfield's office door was closed. Holden knocked, heard "come in," and entered to find the dean sitting heavily in his chair, looking 10 years older than he had an hour ago. "Sit down, Mr. Carraway." Holden sat. "Professor Kensington has made a formal complaint to the competition committee. She claims that your proof contains sections of unpublished research stolen from her files. She's provided what she says is evidence, draft papers from her computer, time-stamped before your submission, containing similar mathematical approaches." There it was, the accusation Holden had known was coming but still hit like a physical blow. "She's lying again. I believe you, but the committee has to investigate. They're reviewing her files now, comparing timestamps, checking metadata. The problem is," Whitfield paused, struggling with the words, "her evidence looks convincing on the surface. The timestamps appear legitimate. Her draft files are dated weeks before your submission deadline. Because she stole my notes, typed them up as her own work, and backdated the files. It's not complicated. Can you prove that?" Could he? Holden thought frantically. He had photographs of his handwritten work, yes, but those showed preliminary calculations, not the full proof. The complete proof had been developed on his personal laptop, saved to cloud storage with automatic timestamps. But if Kensington had accessed his cloud account somehow, if she'd seen those files and created her own versions with earlier dates, "I have my original working files. I can show the development process, the evolution of the proof over time. My files will show a logical progression. Hers won't, because she just copied the final result." That's good. That might be enough. "But Carraway, I have to tell you, 3 committee members are ready to disqualify you based on this evidence. They remember the previous plagiarism accusation. They're worried about the university's reputation if we award $500,000 to someone with a history of being falsely accused by the same person who's accusing me now." Holden's voice rose despite his best efforts. "You just publicly admitted I was innocent. You apologized in front of hundreds of people. And now you're telling me they might disqualify me anyway because Kensington made another false claim. I'm not saying I agree with them. I'm saying this is what we're dealing with. The optics are terrible. Some committee members are arguing that even if you're innocent, the controversy makes it impossible to award you the prize. They want to give it to Dr. Patterson instead to avoid scandal." Holden stood abruptly. "No, absolutely not. My proof was the best. Everyone in that room knew it. You can't let her do this again. I'm trying to stop it, but I need your help. I need you to provide every piece of evidence you have that this is your original work. Timestamps, drafts, everything, and I need it tonight. The committee meets tomorrow at noon to make a final decision. Tonight." Holden checked his phone, already 6 p.m. Hazel would be wondering where he was, worried. Mrs. Chen could only stay until 7:30, and he needed to compile 3 years of mathematical work into an irrefutable timeline proving his innocence. Again. "I'll do it," he said. "But Dean Whitfield, I need you to promise me something. If I prove this is my work, if I show that she's lying, you will not let them disqualify me to avoid controversy. You will stand up to those committee members and fight for what's right. You owe me that much." The dean met his eyes, saw the steel there. "You have my word. If you prove your case, I'll fight for you, and this time I won't back down." Holden left the office at a run. He had less than 24 hours to save everything. The bus ride home felt eternal. Holden called Mrs. Chen, begged her to stay a few more hours, promised to pay her triple even though he had no idea how. She agreed without hesitation, bless her. He called Hazel, explained he had important work to do tonight, promised her favorite breakfast tomorrow. "Are you going to win, Daddy?" she asked. I don't know yet, Pumpkin. I'm still fighting for it. Then you'll win, because you're the best fighter I know. If only fighting was enough. At home, Holden threw his suit jacket over a chair and opened his laptop. He had to compile everything, every draft, every calculation, every evolutionary step of his proof. Had to show that his work developed organically over months, while Kensington's files, if examined closely, would reveal the hollow shell of stolen material copied without understanding. He worked with manic focus, creating a timeline document with screenshots, metadata, comparative analysis. His cloud storage had automatic version history. He could show the proof building piece by piece, mistake by mistake, breakthrough by breakthrough. Real mathematical development left traces that theft couldn't replicate. At 11 p.m., Mrs. Chen left. Hazel was already asleep. Holden continued working, fueled by coffee and desperation. Marcus called at midnight. "Dude, I heard about Kensington's accusation. It's all over the department. People are arguing about it online." Some people believe her. Of course they do. I'm an easy target. But a lot of people are defending you. Dr. Chen posted a statement saying she watched your presentation and you clearly understand the mathematics at a profound level, that no one could fake that kind of expertise. Dr. Patterson agreed. A bunch of students are posting in your support too. That helped, a little, but it wouldn't change the committee's minds. Only evidence would do that. I'm putting together a defense. Timeline, proof development, everything. Need help? Can you come over? Marcus arrived 30 minutes later with his own laptop and enough Chinese food for 3 people. Figured you hadn't eaten. He was right. Holden had forgotten to eat entirely. They worked side by side, Marcus helping organize files, create comparison documents, build the case. Around 3 a.m., they had it, 50 pages documenting every stage of Holden's proof development, complete with timestamps, version histories, and analytical evidence that his work evolved naturally, while Kensington's would show all the signs of copied material. "This is solid," Marcus said, reading through it. "If they don't accept this, they're deliberately choosing to ignore the truth, which they might, to protect the university's reputation. Then they're cowards." Whitfield seems like he's actually willing to fight this time. Maybe, or maybe when it came down to it, the dean would choose the safe path again. Holden couldn't afford to trust him completely, not after everything. At 5 a.m., Holden emailed the complete defense package to Dean Whitfield with a copy to all committee members. Subject line, "Evidence of original work H. Carraway." Then he collapsed on the couch and slept for 3 hours. Hazel woke him at 8:30, bouncing on the cushions. "Daddy, you promised favorite breakfast, right? Pancakes with chocolate chips arranged in smiley faces." Holden dragged himself to the kitchen and made them while Hazel chattered about a dream she'd had involving flying rabbits and mathematics homework that solved itself. "Did you win yesterday?" she asked around a mouthful of pancake. "Not yet. They're announcing today at 2 p.m. Will I see you on TV? Maybe. If they didn't disqualify him, if they believed him, if his entire life didn't collapse again. Maybe, Pumpkin." His phone rang at 10 a.m. "Dean Whitfield, I've reviewed your evidence. It's compelling, very compelling. The committee is meeting in an hour to discuss it. And I think you have a strong case. The version histories, the developmental timeline, the progressive complexity, it all points to original work. Kensington's files, when we examine them more closely, show signs of tampering. The timestamps don't match the file creation metadata. We have a forensic IT specialist looking at them now." Hope flickered in Holden's chest. "So I'm not disqualified, not if I have anything to say about it. But Carraway, I need to warn you, even if we prove your innocence on this, Kensington is threatening legal action. She's talking about suing you for defamation, claiming you've damaged her reputation. Her family's lawyers have already contacted the university. This could get very ugly. Let it get ugly. I'm done running from her." "Good. Because we're going to need that attitude. Come to my office at 1 p.m. before the announcement. There's something else we need to discuss." The call ended. Holden stood in his tiny kitchen, sunlight streaming through the window, Hazel humming while she drew pictures at the table, and felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. If this story moved you, Drop your thoughts in the comments about what you think happens next. Will the committee choose justice or reputation? Let me know your prediction, because what comes next is the moment everything changes. Now let's get back to that meeting. Holden arrived at campus at 12:45 p.m. in his same Goodwill suit, wrinkled now from yesterday's stress. He went straight to the dean's office. Whitfield let him in immediately, and Holden's heart sank. Professor Kensington sat in a chair across from the desk. Her lawyer, a shark-eyed man in an expensive suit, sat beside her. "What is this?" Holden demanded. "A settlement discussion," the lawyer said smoothly. "My client is willing to drop all accusations and legal threats on one condition. You withdraw from the competition. Publicly state that upon reflection, you're not confident in your proof. Dr. Patterson wins by default. Everyone moves on. No one's reputation is damaged." Holden laughed, sharp, bitter. "You want me to withdraw after everything?" "In exchange," the lawyer continued, "Professor Kensington will provide a written statement clearing you of any wrongdoing. The university will expunge your previous expulsion from records. You'll be free to pursue mathematics elsewhere. This is a generous offer." "Generous? She stole my work, accused me of plagiarism twice, destroyed my career, and now wants me to publicly humiliate myself so she can save face." Kensington spoke for the first time. "You don't have a choice. My family's lawyers will bury you in litigation. Even if you win, the legal fees will destroy you. You have a daughter to support. Can you really afford years of court battles?" She was right. The terrible thing was she was absolutely right. Holden could fight and probably lose everything even if he won, or he could take the settlement, walk away, rebuild somewhere else. "But no," he said. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "No, no deal. My proof is the best. I earned this. And I'm not letting you intimidate me into backing down anymore." Kensington's expression hardened. "Then you're a fool. We'll destroy you. Maybe, but at least I'll go down fighting." Holden turned to Dean Whitfield. "Is this meeting over?" The dean looked at him with something like admiration. "Yes, it's over." Holden left. His hands shook as he walked down the hallway, but his head felt clear. He'd made his choice. Whatever happened now, at least he'd stood his ground. At 1:30 p.m., the committee reconvened in a private conference room. Holden waited outside with the other finalists. Dr. Chen sat beside him. "I heard about Kensington's accusations," she said quietly. "For what it's worth, I don't believe them. Your presentation yesterday proved you own that material completely. Thank you. Also, half the mathematics community online is rallying behind you. People are calling out Kensington's history of taking credit for others' work. Apparently, you're not the first person she's done this to." That was news. "Really? Really? There are 3 former graduate students posting about similar experiences. She claimed their research as her own, threatened them into silence. You might have just exposed a pattern." The conference room door opened. Dean Whitfield emerged, expression carefully neutral. "We're ready to make the announcement. Everyone back to the lecture hall, please." The walk felt eternal. When they entered the lecture hall, it was packed again, maybe even more crowded than yesterday. News of the controversy had only increased interest. The livestream viewer count showed over 20,000 people watching. The 5 finalists sat in the front row. Holden could feel eyes on him from every direction. Cameras pointed at his face, capturing his anxiety for thousands to see. Dean Whitfield took the podium. "Thank you all for your patience. The committee has thoroughly reviewed all evidence related to yesterday's allegations. We have reached a decision regarding both the accusations and the competition winner." Holden's heart stopped. This was it. First, regarding the accusations of plagiarism against H. Carraway. After extensive investigation, including forensic analysis of file timestamps and metadata, review of developmental documentation, and consultation with independent experts, the committee has determined that the accusations are without merit. Mr. Carraway's proof is original work, developed over a 3-year period. The evidence suggests that the similar drafts in Professor Kensington's possession were created after Mr. Carraway's submission, with timestamps altered to appear earlier. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kensington's face went white, then red. Furthermore, Whitfield continued, the committee has become aware of a pattern of similar accusations made by Professor Kensington against former students. This raises serious questions about academic integrity that the university will be investigating thoroughly. As of this moment, Professor Kensington is suspended from all teaching and research duties pending the outcome of that investigation. Kensington shot to her feet. This is outrageous. My family will. Your family's financial contributions do not place you above institutional ethics policies, Whitfield said firmly. Please leave the lecture hall, Professor Kensington. She stood there, trembling with rage, surrounded by hundreds of witnesses. For one moment, Holden almost felt sorry for her. She'd built her entire identity on superiority, on being untouchable, and now it was crumbling in the most public way possible. Security guards appeared at her sides. She gathered herself with visible effort and walked out, spine straight, head high. The lawyer followed, already on his phone. The room buzzed with conversation. Dean Whitfield waited for silence before continuing. Now, as for the competition winner, all 5 finalists presented exceptional work. However, one proof demonstrated a level of mathematical elegance, innovative thinking, and rigorous execution that stood above the rest. The winner of the Millennium Prize Mathematics Challenge and recipient of $500,000 is Dr. Holden Caraway. The room erupted. Holden sat frozen, unable to process the words. Dr. Caraway, winner, $500,000. Marcus grabbed his shoulders from the row behind. You did it, holy shit, you did it. Dr. Chen hugged him. Dr. Patterson shook his hand. The applause built to a roar. People stood. Cameras flashed. Holden walked to the podium on numb legs, accepted a ceremonial check from Dean Whitfield, a piece of oversized cardboard that represented more money than he'd seen in his entire life. Congratulations, Whitfield said quietly. You earned this, every bit of it. Holden looked out at the crowd. 500 faces, 20,000 more online, all watching him. The janitor who became a mathematician. The man who refused to stay defeated. Thank you, he said into the microphone. His voice cracked. I don't have a speech prepared. I didn't let myself believe this was possible. But I want to say to anyone watching who feels invisible, who's been told they're not good enough, who's had doors slammed in their face, you are not defined by what others think of you. You are defined by what you do when everyone says you can't. Keep working, keep believing, keep fighting. More applause, louder now. Holden stepped down from the podium, his legs barely holding him up. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and called Mrs. Chen's number. Hello, can you put Hazel on, please? Of course, Hazel, it's your daddy. Rustling then, Daddy, did you win? Holden's eyes burned with tears he couldn't stop anymore. Yeah, Pumpkin, I won. Her shriek of joy was loud enough to make people nearby smile. I knew it, I knew you would. You're the smartest person in the whole world. I love you so much. Love you more. When are you coming home? Soon, very soon. He ended the call. Marcus appeared with Dr. Chen and several other students and faculty members, all talking excitedly about his proof, asking questions, offering congratulations. Holden answered on autopilot, still not fully processing that this was real. A university administrator approached with paperwork. Dr. Caraway, we need to arrange the actual prize payment. It will take a few days to process, but the money will be in your account by the end of the week. We'll also need to discuss your reinstatement status, degree conferral, and potential faculty position if you're interested. Yes, Holden said immediately. To all of it, yes. The administrator smiled. Excellent. Let's set up a meeting for tomorrow to discuss details. Tomorrow, he had a tomorrow now. He had a future that extended beyond survival, beyond scraping by. He could pay off his debts, get Hazel the medical care she needed. Move to an apartment with heat that worked and walls thick enough to block out street noise. Maybe even start saving for her college education. The crowd gradually dispersed. Marcus insisted on taking Holden out for a celebratory drink, but Holden declined. I need to get home. I need to see my daughter. Tomorrow, then. We're celebrating properly tomorrow. Tomorrow, Holden agreed. He walked out of the lecture hall as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the campus. The same campus where he'd once walked as a promising doctoral student, where he'd been humiliated, expelled, reduced to invisible labor, where he'd mopped these same floors, cleaned these same buildings, and refused to let them kill the mathematician inside him. His phone buzzed as he reached the bus stop. An email notification. He almost ignored it, too emotionally exhausted to deal with more messages, but something made him look. From unknown sender, encrypted net subject. Congratulations, Dr. Carraway. He opened it with growing unease. The message was brief. Congratulations on your victory. You've impressed a lot of people with your work. I represent a private research institute that specializes in advanced theoretical mathematics. We have a problem we've been unable to solve for 5 years. Based on your proof, we believe you're the only person who can help us. The project is highly confidential and extremely well funded. If you're interested, meet me at the address below at 9 p.m. tonight. Come alone. Don't mention this email to anyone. What we're working on will change the world, but only if the wrong people don't find out first. An address followed, an office building downtown that Holden recognized as housing several tech startups and venture capital firms. The email ended, "Your daughter's future depends on you making the right choice." Holden's blood turned to ice. His daughter, they'd mentioned his daughter. This wasn't a job offer. It was a threat wrapped in opportunity. Someone knew about Hazel, someone was watching. He looked around the darkening campus, suddenly hyper-aware that he was alone at the bus stop, that anyone could be watching from the buildings around him. His victory suddenly felt hollow, tainted. He'd thought this was over. He'd thought he'd won. But something told him the real fight was just beginning. Holden stared at the email, at that address, at the implied threat to his daughter. He had 2 hours to decide whether to go to that meeting, 2 hours to figure out who had sent this and what they wanted, 2 hours to determine whether his mathematical genius had just made him and Hazel targets for something far more dangerous than academic politics. He needed to get home, needed to make sure Hazel was safe. Then he needed to figure out what the hell he'd just gotten himself into. As the bus pulled up, Holden took one last look at his phone. The mysterious email stared back at him, those final words burning into his mind. Your daughter's future depends on you making the right choice. If you're not subscribed, subscribe now. Because what Holden discovers at that meeting, and the choice he has to make between his daughter's safety and the biggest mathematical discovery of the century, is something no one will see coming. This is where everything changes. Holden stared at those words, "Your daughter's future depends on you making the right choice," and felt his entire victory turn to ash. Someone was watching Hazel, someone knew enough to threaten her. The bus doors hissed open, but Holden couldn't move, couldn't think beyond the ice flooding his veins. His phone rang, unknown number. His thumb hovered over the decline button, then answered. "Who is this?" "Dr. Carraway." A woman's voice, professional, calm. "I apologize for the dramatic wording of my email. That was poorly phrased. Let me be clear. Your daughter is not in danger. We're not threatening her. We're offering you an opportunity to secure her future beyond what the prize money alone could provide." "Who are you?" "My name is Dr. Sarah Voss. I'm the director of the Archimedes Institute, a private mathematics research facility. We work on problems that governments and corporations can't solve through conventional means. We're funded by several tech billionaires who prefer to remain anonymous." The email was meant to convey urgency, not menace. I realize now how it came across. "I'm sorry." Holden's heart still hammered, but confusion replaced terror. "Why the secrecy?" "Because what we're working on has significant commercial and theoretical implications. We need mathematicians who can think outside traditional frameworks. Your proof demonstrated exactly that kind of innovative thinking. The meeting tonight is simply an opportunity to discuss whether you'd be interested in consulting work. Extremely well-paid consulting work. No obligations, no pressure, just a conversation. And if I don't come, then you don't come. You've already won your prize, you owe us nothing. But Dr. Carraway, what we're working on could be worth 10 times what you won today. And it's the kind of pure mathematics you clearly love. At least hear us out." Holden looked at the address in the email again. A public building in downtown, not some abandoned warehouse. 9 p.m. Yes, 20th floor, Archimedes Institute Suite. There will be 3 other people there, myself, my research partner, and a legal representative to discuss terms if you're interested. Again, no pressure, just an opportunity. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. Congratulations again on your victory. You earned it. She hung up. Holden stood at the bus stop, mind racing. The explanation made sense. A private research institute looking for talent wouldn't be uncommon. The prize money was life-changing, but more income could mean real security for Hazel. College fully funded, medical care without stress, actual savings, but something felt off. The timing, the secrecy, the dramatic email, or maybe he was just paranoid after 3 years of waiting for the next disaster. The bus pulled away without him. Holden walked to campus security instead. Officer Martinez had been friendly during Holden's janitorial shifts, always had a kind word. He looked up from his desk when Holden entered. "Hey Holden, I heard about your big win. Congratulations, man. Thanks, listen, I need advice about something." He showed Martinez the email. The officer frowned as he read. "Archimedes Institute, hold on." He typed on his computer. "Yeah, they're legit. High-end private research firm, been around for 8 years. Address matches their registered office. No complaints, no red flags in the system. So it's probably real, probably, but you should still be careful. Want me to have a patrol car swing by that address around 9, just make sure everything looks normal? Would you?" "Of course, and keep your phone on you. If anything feels wrong, call 911 immediately. Trust your gut." Holden thanked him and finally caught the next bus home. By the time he walked through his apartment door, Hazel was practically vibrating with excitement. Daddy won, Daddy won." She launched herself at him, and he caught her, spinning her around despite his exhaustion. "Mrs. Chen showed me the video online. Everyone's talking about you. You were on the computer screen and everything." Mrs. Chen smiled from the kitchen, where she'd apparently started making dinner. She insisted on watching the announcement live. "I hope that was okay." "More than okay, thank you." Holden set Hazel down but kept holding her hand. "Did you see the whole thing? The part where the mean lady got in trouble?" "Yes, she was bad to you, Daddy. I'm glad she can't be mean anymore." Out of the mouths of children. "Yeah, pumpkin, me too." They ate dinner together. Mrs. Chen had made dumplings again, refused payment again, and left with promises to celebrate properly tomorrow. After Hazel was in her pajamas, teeth brushed, tucked into bed with her rabbit, she looked up at Holden with serious eyes. "What happens now? Now we get to move to a better apartment. Now I get to be a professor again. Now you get to keep doing your mathematics without worrying about whether we can afford your medicine. But you'll still be my daddy. You won't be too busy." His throat tightened. "I will always, always be your daddy. That's the most important job I have. Everything else is just details." She hugged him tight. "I love you more." After she fell asleep, Holden checked the time, 7:45 p.m. He had over an hour before the meeting. He called Marcus. "What's up, champion?" Holden explained the email and Dr. Voss's call. Marcus listened without interrupting. "It's probably legitimate," Marcus said finally, "but I'd still be careful. Want me to come with you?" The email said come alone. "So, you're not obligated to follow their rules. If they're legitimate, they won't care if you bring a friend." That was actually good logic. "Okay, meet me there at 8:45. Done. And Holden, congrats again, seriously. What you did today was incredible." At 8:30 p.m., Holden kissed sleeping Hazel's forehead, confirmed Mrs. Chen was staying overnight, she'd insisted, bless her, and took the bus downtown. The office building was exactly as described. Modern glass and steel, well-lit, security guard in the lobby checking IDs. Marcus met him outside at 8:45. Together they rode the elevator to the 20th floor. The Archimedes Institute suite had frosted glass doors with minimalist lettering. Holden knocked. Dr. Sarah Voss answered, late 40s, graying hair pulled back, sharp, intelligent eyes behind frameless glasses. She looked like someone who spent most of her time thinking about abstract problems. "Dr. Carraway, thank you for coming." Her gaze shifted to Marcus. "And you brought a colleague." "I hope that's okay." This is Marcus Chen, a graduate student at Whitmore. Of course, please come in. The suite was modest, conference room, several offices, whiteboards covered in equations Holden's fingers itched to examine. Two other people waited in the conference room, a younger man with tired eyes and an older woman in business attire. This is Dr. James Park, my research partner, Voss gestured to the tired-eyed man. And Diane Foster, our legal counsel. Please sit. They sat. Voss poured water from a pitcher, slid glasses across the table. I want to start by apologizing again for the email's phrasing. That was my attempt at urgency that came across as threatening, not my finest moment. What do you actually want? Holden asked directly. We want to hire you as a consultant. We're working on a problem in quantum cryptography, specifically developing encryption algorithms that can't be broken by quantum computers. The mathematics is challenging. We've made progress, but we're stuck. Your proof today demonstrated the kind of non-linear thinking we need. Dr. Park leaned forward. We've been working on this for 18 months. Your approach to the Navier-Stokes problem, the way you restructured the boundary conditions, applies directly to our quantum field constraints. We think you could help us find the breakthrough we're missing. And you'd pay me for this. $50,000 for 3 months of consulting work, 10 hours per week, Foster said, sliding a contract across the table. Flexible schedule, can be done remotely or on-site as you prefer. If we achieve a breakthrough using your insights, you'd receive 20% of any patent revenue, which could be substantial. We're talking technology that every government and corporation would need. Everything you've worked for is about to lead to this moment. If you're not subscribed, subscribe now, because what Holden decides here changes everything. Now let's see how he handles this opportunity. Holden read the contract carefully while Marcus looked over his shoulder. It seemed straightforward. Consulting agreement, intellectual property clauses, confidentiality requirements. Nothing obviously predatory. Why me specifically? There are hundreds of brilliant mathematicians you could hire. Because you've spent 3 years thinking about mathematics while living in the real world, Voss said. Most academics are brilliant but disconnected from practical constraints. You've had to be creative, resourceful, efficient. Your proof reflects that elegant precisely because you couldn't waste time on overcomplicated approaches. That's what we need, Marcus whispered. It looks legitimate. The terms are actually generous. Holden thought about Hazel's college fund, about moving to a real house someday, about having a cushion beyond the prize money. Can I have a few days to think about it? Of course, take a week. But Dr. Carraway, I want to be transparent. We approached you before the announcement because we were confident you'd win. We've been watching the competition closely. If you decline, we'll approach Dr. Chen or Dr. Patterson, but you're our first choice. They talked for another 30 minutes about the project, the mathematics involved, the timeline. By the time Holden and Marcus left, it was nearly 10 p.m., and Holden's head spun with possibilities. That was surreal, Marcus said as they walked to the bus stop. You just went from janitor to mathematics celebrity to recruited by private research firm in like 12 hours. It doesn't feel real yet. Well, get used to it. You're going to have a lot of opportunities coming your way now. Universities will want to hire you. Research institutions will compete for you. You've proven yourself on a global stage. The next week passed in a blur of meetings, interviews, and paperwork. Whitmore University formally conferred Holden's Ph.D., expunged his record, and offered him an assistant professorship starting next semester. The prize money hit his bank account, $500,000 that made him stare at the screen for 5 full minutes, certain it was an error. He paid off every debt, credit cards, medical bills, everything. He set up a college fund for Hazel that would cover any university she wanted to attend. He moved them to a 2-bedroom apartment with working heat, thick walls, and a view of the park. He bought Hazel new clothes, new shoes, and kept apologizing for all the times he couldn't. "Daddy, stop," she finally said, hugging him. "We were okay before. We're just more okay now." Professor Kensington, meanwhile, faced her own reckoning. The university investigation uncovered a pattern spanning 12 years, 7 graduate students whose work she'd appropriated, whose careers she'd threatened, whose contributions she'd erased. One by one, they came forward, emboldened by Holden's example. A formal ethics hearing was scheduled. Her family's lawyers worked overtime trying to negotiate a settlement, but the evidence was overwhelming. 2 weeks after the competition, the university held a press conference. Dean Whitfield, looking older but somehow lighter, announced Professor Kensington's termination for cause. This institution failed to protect vulnerable students and junior researchers. We prioritized reputation and donor relations over truth and justice. That ends now. We're implementing new oversight procedures, anonymous reporting systems, and independent ethics review boards. And we're reaching out to every person affected by Professor Kensington's actions to offer apologies, restored credit, and compensation where appropriate. Holden watched the press conference from his new apartment, Hazel doing homework beside him. When it ended, she looked up. The bad lady can't hurt anyone else now. No, Pumpkin, she can't. Good, that's called justice, right? We learned about it in school. That's exactly what it's called. The following Monday, Holden taught his first class as Professor Carraway. Advanced calculus, 30 students, half of them staring at him with obvious recognition from the viral videos of his presentation. He stood at the front of the lecture hall, the same lecture hall where Kensington had once humiliated him, and smiled. Welcome to Advanced Calculus. I'm Dr. Holden Carraway. Some of you know my story. Some of you are probably in this room 2 weeks ago when everything happened. Nervous laughter rippled through the students. I'm not going to pretend that situation was normal, but I'm going to use it to make a promise to you all. In this class, I will see you, every single one of you. I don't care if you're brilliant or struggling, confident or terrified, here on scholarship or family money. I will see you, I will value you, and I will never, ever make you feel small for trying. A girl in the third row raised her hand tentatively. Professor, can I ask about your proof? The way you handled the boundary conditions, I didn't understand the transition from equation 12 to 13. Holden's smile widened. Great question, let me show you. He spent the next hour doing what he loved most, sharing mathematics, making complex concepts accessible, watching understanding dawn on students' faces. When class ended, several students stayed to ask more questions. Marcus, auditing the class to support his friend, gave him a thumbs up from the back row. This was what victory felt like. Not the prize money, not the vindication, but this, doing the work he was meant to do in a space that finally honored rather than diminished him. That afternoon, Dean Whitfield called him to his office. Dr. Carraway, thank you for coming. I wanted to discuss something with you. Holden sat across from the dean, struck by how much their dynamic had shifted. They were colleagues now, not janitor and boss, not disgraced student and administrator. Equals. Several of Professor Kensington's former students have requested advocacy during the ethics process, Whitfield said. They're nervous about speaking up, worried about retaliation. They've asked if you'd be willing to support them. Obviously no pressure, but yes, Holden said immediately. Of course I'll help them. Thank you. Also, the university would like to establish a new scholarship in your name. The Carraway Fellowship for students facing financial hardship who demonstrate exceptional mathematical ability. We're asking if you'd be willing to serve on the selection committee. A scholarship in his name. For students like he'd been brilliant but struggling, facing barriers that had nothing to do with ability. I'd be honored. Good. Because honestly, Carraway, you've become something of an inspiration around here. Applications to our mathematics program are up 40%. Getting inquiries from students who saw your presentation and decided mathematics was something they could pursue after all. You've changed the culture of this department. Holden left the dean's office feeling like he was floating. He picked Hazel up from school. He could do that now, adjust his schedule to be there when she needed him, and they walked home together through autumn afternoon sunlight. How was school? He asked. Good, we started a new unit in math. It's about geometry. I love geometry. Meet. Want to know a secret about triangles? Always. He spent the walk home explaining the Pythagorean theorem in terms she could grasp, watching her face light up with understanding. This, he thought, this is what matters. Not the prestige, not the recognition, but this moment with his daughter, sharing the thing he loved most with the person he loved most. At home, he made dinner real dinner, with vegetables and protein and time to cook it properly, while Hazel did homework at the kitchen table. His phone buzzed with an email from Dr. Voss. He'd accepted the Archimedes Institute consulting position, and they'd sent him the first problem set to review. He opened it, scanned the equations, and felt that familiar thrill of a challenging problem. He'd look at it tonight after Hazel was asleep, would work on it in his home office, his actual office, in his actual apartment, as his actual job. No more janitor's closet, no more stolen moments between cleaning shifts. Daddy. Hazel's voice pulled him back. Can you help with this problem? He sat beside her, looked at her worksheet and smiled. Absolutely, show me where you're stuck. They worked through it together, Holden patient and encouraging, Hazel persistent and curious. By the time dinner was ready, she'd solved it herself, glowing with pride. I did it. You did. I knew you would. That evening, after Hazel was in bed, Holden stood at his window looking out at the city. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Coffee tomorrow. Want to hear about my thesis progress? Another text from Dr. Chen at MIT. Collaboration opportunity if you're interested, comparing our approaches to the competition problem. Another from a journalist, following up on interview request for Mathematics Today magazine. His life had transformed so completely, so quickly, that sometimes he still expected to wake up in his old apartment to realize it was all a dream. But it was real. The apartment was real, the professorship was real, the respect was real. He'd fought for it, earned it, refused to let them keep him down. And yet the thing that mattered most hadn't changed at all. Hazel, sleeping peacefully in the next room, was exactly who she'd always been. His reason for fighting, his motivation, his purpose. Everything else, the money, the position, the recognition, was just tools to give her the life she deserved. 3 months later, Holden sat in a conference room at the Archimedes Institute, marker in hand, finishing the proof that had stumped them for 18 months. Dr. Voss and Dr. Park watched in silence as he filled the final whiteboard, connected the last logical thread, and stepped back. There, that's how you solve for quantum-resistant encryption with minimal computational overhead. Park stared at the boards, reading through the proof line by line. My God, it's beautiful. It's brilliant, Voss breathed. How did you? I looked at it from a different angle. You were treating it as a discrete problem, but if you model it as continuous and then discretize at the final step, the constraints become manageable. The math becomes elegant. They spent 2 hours testing the proof, checking edge cases, running simulations. It held, more than held, it was revolutionary. The patent application would be filed within days. The technology would be worth billions. And Holden would receive his 20% of patent revenue. The $50,000 consulting fee was nothing compared to what this breakthrough represented. On the drive home, Holden called Dean Whitfield. I want to increase my donation to the Caraway Fellowship. I'm coming into some additional resources, and I want to fund at least 10 students per year. Full tuition, living expenses, everything. That's extraordinarily generous, Caraway. It's paying forward. Someone should have helped me when I was struggling. I can be that someone for others now. That evening's dinner was a celebration. Hazel, Mrs. Chen, Marcus, Dr. Chen visiting from MIT, several of Holden's students who'd become friends. They crowded into his apartment, bigger now, but still modest, and ate takeout and talked mathematics and laughed until the neighbors knocked on the wall. After everyone left except Mrs. Chen, who was helping clean up, Holden found Hazel on the couch drawing pictures. What are you working on? A picture of you teaching. She held it up, stick figures, equations on a board, hearts and stars decorating the margins. Because you're the best teacher in the whole world. His eyes burned. Thank you, pumpkin. Daddy, are you happy now? Such a simple question, such a profound one. Was he happy? 3 months ago, he'd been a janitor with an empty bank account and no prospects. Now he was Dr. Holden Caraway, professor, consultant, winner of prestigious competitions, creator of breakthrough encryption technology. But the happiness didn't come from those things. It came from this, his daughter safe and healthy, asking him questions, his work meaningful and valued. his integrity restored, his future secure not because someone gave it to him, but because he'd fought for it and won. "Yeah," he said softly, "I'm happy. Good, me too." 6 months after the competition, Whitmore University held its annual mathematics symposium. Holden was the keynote speaker. He stood on the stage in the Hamilton Lecture Hall, the same stage where he'd been accused, defended, and vindicated, and looked out at an audience of mathematicians, students, journalists, and curious observers. "I want to tell you about invisibility," he began. "Not the science fiction kind, the social kind. The kind where you're in a room full of people, but no one sees you. No one acknowledges your existence, your contributions, your humanity. I spent 3 years being invisible, working 2 jobs to survive, raising my daughter alone, and pursuing mathematics in stolen moments because I couldn't stop being who I was, even when the world told me I should." He talked about humiliation and persistence, about falling and choosing to get up. About the people who helped him, Marcus, Mrs. Chen, even Dean Whitfield eventually, and the people who tried to destroy him. About how the mathematics itself sustained him through the darkest times. "Here's what I learned," he said. "You are not defined by what happens to you, you're defined by what you do next. Professor Kensington tried to erase me twice. She failed, not because I was stronger than her, but because I refused to disappear. I kept doing the work. I kept showing up. I kept believing that truth and quality would eventually be recognized." He paused, letting that sink in. "But I also learned that individual persistence isn't enough. Systems have to change. This university is changing. We have new ethics oversight, new protections for vulnerable researchers, new commitment to truth over politics. That matters, because the next person facing what I faced shouldn't have to fight as hard as I did. They should be protected from the start." The audience was completely silent, leaning forward, engaged. Holden felt the weight of their attention, used it. "To the students here, especially those who feel invisible, who feel like you don't belong, who feel like your background or circumstances disqualify you from excellence, you're wrong. You belong here as much as anyone. Your perspective, shaped by your struggles, might be exactly what mathematics needs. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." He concluded with a challenge. "To my fellow faculty and administrators, see your students, really see them. The quiet one in the back row might be brilliant. The janitor cleaning your office might be a genius. The person you dismiss because they don't fit your expectation of what a mathematician looks like might revolutionize your field. Don't make the mistakes this institution made with me. Be better. We can all be better." The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, dozens of people wanted to talk to him, shake his hand, share their own stories of feeling invisible. Holden listened to each one, offered encouragement, exchanged contact information. This was his purpose now, not just doing mathematics, but making sure others had the opportunity he'd nearly lost. Near the end of the reception, a young woman approached nervously. "Dr. Carraway, I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to say thank you. I'm a first-generation college student working 3 part-time jobs to stay here. I was about to drop out because I couldn't handle the workload and the financial stress. But after watching your presentation at the competition, seeing that you managed to pursue mathematics while working multiple jobs and raising a daughter, it gave me hope. I decided to stay, and I just got accepted to the Carraway Fellowship." Holden's throat tightened. "What's your name?" "Jasmine Torres." "Jasmine, you don't ever need to thank me. You staying, you fighting for your education, that's your victory. I'm just honored to help make it a little easier. Are you going to keep pursuing mathematics?" "Yes, I want to teach someday like you." "Then you'll be excellent at it, because you'll understand your students in ways people who have never struggled won't. That's a gift, even if it doesn't feel like one now." She thanked him again and left. Marcus appeared at Holden's elbow. "You know you're basically a mathematics celebrity now, right? There are articles about you in academic journals, features in mainstream media, even a hashtag Janitor Genius." "That's slightly embarrassing." "That's extremely cool. Own it, man, you've earned it." Maybe he had. Maybe it was okay to accept recognition, to acknowledge that he'd done something remarkable, that the struggle had been worth it. That evening, Holden walked home through spring twilight. The city felt different now, or maybe he felt different in it. Not invisible anymore, not defeated, just a man who'd fought for his dignity and won. At home, Hazel was already in pajamas, having convinced Mrs. Chen to let her stay up late. "Daddy, how was your speech?" "It went well, I think." "Of course it did, you're good at speeches." She hugged him. "Are you tired? You look tired." "A little, it's been a big day." "Want to watch a movie? We can watch something with math in it." Mrs. Chen said there's one about a genius who solves impossible problems. Holden laughed. "That might be a little too on the nose tonight. How about we watch something with absolutely no mathematics at all, just fun?" "Deal." They settled on the couch with popcorn, Mrs. Chen joining them after finishing the dishes Holden insisted he'd do later. The movie played, something animated and silly that required no thought, and Hazel leaned against him, warm and safe, and exactly where she should be. This was victory, not the applause or the accolades, but this quiet moment. His daughter healthy and happy, his future secure, his work meaningful, his integrity intact. Dr. Holden Caraway had been told he was nothing, that he belonged in the shadows, that his place was cleaning floors rather than creating proofs. He'd been humiliated, expelled, erased, and he'd risen anyway. Not because he was special, not because he was uniquely talented, but because he'd refused to accept their definition of who he was. He'd kept working, kept believing, kept fighting for the truth of his own worth. The movie ended. Hazel yawned. "Bedtime, bedtime." He tucked her in, read her a story about brave adventurers, and kissed her forehead. "I love you, pumpkin. Love you more, Daddy, forever and always. Forever and always." In his home office, Holden spent an hour on the Archimedes Institute work. The patent had been filed, the technology was being refined, and his consulting had evolved into a permanent position. Tomorrow he'd teach 2 classes, hold office hours where students knew they'd be heard, and work on a research paper with Dr. Chen about novel approaches to complex systems. His life had become full in ways he'd stopped daring to imagine during those dark years. And the fullness came not from revenge. Kensington's downfall brought him no joy, only a quiet satisfaction that justice had been served, but from building something new, something better. Before bed, he checked his email one last time. A message from Dean Whitfield. "Caraway, the university is establishing an ethical research integrity center. Would you consider serving as co-director? We need someone who understands what happens when systems fail, who can help us build better protections." Holden typed his response. "I'd be honored. Let's discuss details tomorrow." He closed his laptop and walked to Hazel's room. She slept peacefully, her rabbit clutched close, her breathing easy now that they could afford her medication without stress. He stood in the doorway watching her, this small person who'd given him a reason to keep fighting when he'd wanted to give up. "I did it," he whispered to her sleeping form. "We made it through." And they had. Not unscathed, the years of struggle had left marks, lessons learned the hard way about resilience and dignity and refusing to disappear. But they'd made it. They'd survived. They'd won. Dr. Holden Caraway, once told he was nothing, had proven them all spectacularly wrong. He'd gone from janitor to mathematics professor, from invisible to celebrated, from defeated to triumphant. But more importantly, he'd kept his integrity, protected his daughter, and stayed true to who he was even when the world demanded he be less. That was the victory that mattered, not the money or the position or the recognition, though those things made life easier and opened doors. The real victory was that he'd faced humiliation and injustice and cruelty, and he'd emerged as himself, fully, authentically, unapologetically himself. He was Dr. Holden Caraway, mathematician, father, survivor, fighter, professor, and he was finally, after years of darkness, exactly where he belonged.